Right between the eyebrows.
Right between the eyebrows?
Yep.
All right, that's what we're rolling with. Get a natural point of aim right between the eyebrows. I have control. I have control. I have control. Stand by. 5, 4, 3.
What was interesting here in the competition advantage class was we had 2 police officers, one of which was completely new to this whole aspect of shooting a bolt gun. Gone through, I want to say he went through the Hathcock School, the law enforcement sniper school, the Hathcock School. And he was talking to me about, what the curriculum entailed and what they covered and such. And that shooter showed up with a 16.5-inch extra international AT. No muzzle device, no nothing. The guy was shooting 168 grain Sierra Match Kings, and he was using a minute of angle scope. So that was an experience in itself for this individual, right? Brand new and showing up to a competition advantage clinic. And I got to tell you, this guy crushed it. He did a fantastic job. He was not utilizing his equipment as an excuse in any way, form, or another, which was awesome. He also didn't show up with any toxic aspects of ego. And I say the toxic aspects of ego because we're all going to look at this and be like, oh, you got to leave your ego at the door. It doesn't work that way. You don't leave your fucking ego anywhere. It goes with you wherever you go. Your job is to get in touch with your ego, understand how it works, understand how it drives and directs how you show up. That way you can manage your ego, right? So that's what this individual did. He did a fantastic job at that, and he stayed focused, and he stayed really, really in tune with learning the entire time. Very, very attentive. Then we had another shooter that showed up with a personal rifle, a 6.5 Creedmoor, and that was a really well-built system. And he had just gone through our law enforcement skills clinic with our law enforcement lead guy, Landon Jones, up in New Hampshire. And he said that he had a great time up there, and he said that it dramatically shifted, if not completely fundamentally shifted, his entire approach to marksmanship, which is exactly what we're trying to do. We want you to think differently. We want you to think in modernized marksmanship mechanics. And so we also had two former British Royal Marine snipers that are my peers in terms of time in service and the duration in service. So we had some good perspectives on how to run equipment and what guys had been taught in the past versus what modern marksmanship mechanics are today. And so there was a lot of discussion about, and it keeps rearing its ugly head. And this is kind of something that I've been wanting to discuss for a long time, and I've been struggling with how to discuss it without coming across in a typical and or I guess old way of I'm not interested in throwing stones. And so there was a lot of talk about snipercraft and how snipercraft is still telling people, law enforcement snipers, that none of what these guys did over the course of those 3 days is going to make them a better shooter. And that's just something that I have a major, major problem with. And the reason that I have a major problem with it is it truly does retard the growth of that community by telling people, professionals, to avoid a specific aspect of their job that would potentially, well, not even potentially, would undoubtedly give them an edge on their ability to run that rifle. So running a rifle in terms of being a sniper is 10% of your job, maybe, if that. However, when that need arises, that 10% of possibility now becomes 100% of your purpose. And you need to be able to run that rifle just as well as you can drive your car. You need to be able to run that rifle as an extension of you, and it's just a tool. It's just a tool that you're using to solve a problem. and you're using your mind as the actual weapon. You are the weapon. That is just a tool that you're utilizing to solve a problem. And I'm beating this like a dead horse, because the fact of the matter is that you can crow all you want about how military snipers do not have a place teaching law enforcement snipers. However, I beg to differ, and here's why. When I first decided that I was going to be a sniper, that was the path that I wanted to pursue as a young boy, and I solidified that plan at 14 years old. And I did that as a result of reading a lot of books. I read as many books as I could possibly get my hands on. Probably books that I don't know, probably shouldn't have read, but man, I was a child of the 80s and the 90s, right? So, hey, that's what it was. At least I was not, burning shit down and causing all kinds of problems in town. I was a bookworm, but I was studying military, law enforcement, and professional aspects of rifle marksmanship. And so, one of the books that I read was, actually I read both of his books. There's Mr. Bartlett's book from Snipercraft. And what I'm just going to say is that, dude, you made me. Like, you made me what I am. The books that I read were an inspiration to me. And even back then, I was able to separate the two. I was able to see that there were distinct differences between how military snipers operated as well as law enforcement snipers. Now, a lot of the material that I was given at that point in time, it was Vietnam era stuff. There wasn't a whole lot of sniping that was going on outside of that conflict that anybody had any information on, right? Especially Bosnia and all of that was just going on as I was getting out of high school. So from the perspective of military and law enforcement, yeah, man, like you gave me the inspiration to pursue that path. And now, you wrote that book relatively early on in your career, Mr. Bartlett. And I've been doing this now for 25 years. And so what I'm going to tell you is that my experiences matter. As a professional in this space, having bounced between both organizations, now I'm not a law enforcement sniper. I've never claimed to be. However, you cannot simply just blanket that experience and say, well, military guys shouldn't be training law enforcement snipers. And this is where I beg to differ, because everybody's experience as a sniper is different with regard to how they operated and how they were trained in the military. And here's why. So the days of old of just of running around and killing people, it's not how it works. And furthermore, my combat deployment to Iraq involved more policing and enforcement of martial law than anything else, than any direct combat operations that I did. So as a Marine sniper, if you have the benefit of being attached to an MSPF, which is a Maritime Special Purpose Force, and you're in the reconnaissance and surveillance element, which is the MSPF, you're going to be exposed to a lot of different skills that a regular infantry sniper is not necessarily going to get exposed to. Things like urban sniper school, urban reconnaissance and surveillance courses, and then all of the other qualification exercises that go along with validating your ability to not only retain but practically apply that knowledge and skill through all of the various SOC X's and Fleet X's and X's and X's exercises that our units would have to go through to prove that we had the capability and capacity to run these missions and execute these missions. Things like non-combatant evacuation operations, meaning probably the most probable that we would be called upon, right? Look at Afghanistan botched pullout, Abbey, right? That was supposed to be a non-combatant evacuation operation, which obviously turned out to be completely the opposite. So there's that hostage rescue stuff, which most likely everybody knows we would never, ever get that mission. However, we did train for it. We did understand what it meant to take those types of shots, and we were trained to that standard at our urban sniper course. So we learned how to do all of these things. Shooting up close inside 300 yards, understanding what your dope is inside 300 yards, shooting through glass and barriers, understanding what that all works, or how that all works, what bullets do what. We were doing this stuff in 99 to 2000 is when I was first exposed to it, and we were meticulously documenting our experiences. And now, granted, our bullet composition was less than desirable back then. However, we were able to see that, yeah, man, this is kind of sketchy. This is very, very unpredictable when we shoot through glass. And we knew that if we had to shoot through glass, that, hey, man, if that target's anywhere, past a few feet behind that glass, it might not be a viable option. So a lot of law enforcement departments in the Southern California area understood that that was the curriculum that we had at the Urban Sniper course, as well as applying all of those skills on a practical aspect at the Urban Reconnaissance and Surveillance course. Understanding how difficult it is to get yourself and your equipment into an area of operations depending on the permissibility of the environment, right? We have, a permissible environment, which basically allows you to move about freely. The risk of compromise is not going to cause your team serious bodily harm or death. Then we have semi-permissive environments where compromise is most likely mission failure, and you run a risk of getting into a direct conflict with the enemy. And then finally, a non-permissive environment being, hey, compromise is immediate failure, and we're going to have an immediate engagement with the enemy. And that's obviously not where we want to be as a reconnaissance asset. So all of those things like close target reconnaissance, understanding your bullet's trajectory at close ranges, we've been exposed to all that. Now, not every sniper is. There are a lot of snipers out there that don't get a chance to go through that level of training. And when they do go out there and start to train law enforcement officers, they revert back to what they do know, which is not applicable, absolutely not applicable. If you're going to go out there and you're going to teach a law enforcement sniper how to use that abomination of a reticle called the Tremor 3, yeah, you don't belong anywhere near training a law enforcement sniper because you don't understand what they do and you don't understand their mission. So I think that we have a lot more parallels than we think. However, where I'm coming from is that I'm here to progress the craft and progress the trade. And I'm here to do that without shying away or cowering from making statements that might inflame other people's egos, because I don't really care about that stuff. What I care about is making sure that dudes have exactly what they need to go do their job and to do it very, very effectively. And that is a holistic approach when it comes to being a sniper, whether it be a law enforcement dude or a military dude. I'll say it again, the majority of my combat deployment was done doing area and route and zone reconnaissance missions, as well as a lot of close target reconnaissance and operating well inside sometimes 100 yards of the objective and providing overwatch for raids, providing overwatches for human intelligence interactions, all of those different things we all have experience doing. And so that experience matters. And if we can pass that on to law enforcement guys to say, hey man, these are the lessons learned that we took away from this experience, you can definitely apply that to what you do. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Okay. So that's where I'm at with this. You know what? Like I said, man, at the end of the day, you made me who I am today in this industry, potentially being a thorn in your side. So that's just it. And I'm not going to stop. We're just going to keep going forward, and we're going to keep progressing this and giving these guys the information that they need to be successful and to evolve themselves, because we should be evolving with every single shot that we take. Right. So that's that. We're off that topic now. We're going to get into some of the gear that I've been using and why.